Now we'll go down and we'll chase this other wire, which was right here. This one goes all the way up. Red wire. And it goes into the ignition switch. So, this is our first actual electrical component that does some switching. And if you notice, it says BAT 1. That is your hot lead. These two wires are hot all the time as long as your battery's connected. Now what's interesting about that is you see the ignition switch. You have IGN1, IGN2. Basically when you turn your ignition switch on, it's going to complete a path to these right here. Now how do we know this? I thought you'd ask that. We're going to go all the way down to the bottom. And on the bottom we have one more little diagram. Now you'll notice it has an on position, it has an off position. When you turn the key on, the battery, the ignition, and the fan are all one circuit, so it makes them all hot. When you turn it off, you notice the boxes don't have little circles in them. That means there's no power there, so there is no path. Now we'll go back up to the ignition switch, which is right here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to chase this red and white wire back down. We're going to find out where that goes. Comes back down into the fuse box and carries all the power to all four fuses down here. Okay, notice there is one here that is not completed yet. So when you turn your ignition on, you have the blue and red, the blue and brown, the white and green, and the white and black. What we can do is we'll go back over to the fuse box. So by turning the key on, earlier we discussed that we had a blue and red and a black and brown. So blue and red turns the headlight on, black and brown turns on the neutral, oil, and tail light. White and green, brake and horn. White and blue, starter and bank angle sensor. Okay, so all those become live. There's at least power up to the components. So prior to turning the key on, you don't have power to any of those. That would make sense. We're having an issue with our headlight. So the first thing we'll want to do is we'll take a look and find the headlight. The blue and red wire, it's a 10 amp fuse. Or black and red, I'm sorry, which is right here. And it comes up into this engine stop and starter, goes to the battery, and we have a blue with a white, we have a yellow to a red, and a blue into the white. From this point, if we wanted to just isolate the headlight, and we didn't want to trace out every single wire, it would make most sense to go directly to the headlight. We come in and we have the G, the W, and the B. If you can't see that, we'll zoom in just a little bit. Now, you know that this one's a ground because it comes between both circuits. What we're going to do is we're going to take a look at just the W. which will be the white wire, and we're just going to start tracing that back. You'll notice that it comes down into this pack here, which is your turn signal, your dimmer, and your horn. And you'll see that there's a little switch in there. We'll follow the switch, and that is actually your little button that you hit to go between headlights, high and low. And we'll keep going up. Now you'll also see it comes into this 4-pin connector. It says 4-pin right there. Sometimes they'll change wires. You can see this is a light green into a blue here. We want to keep following. Now it's kind of funny because we did end up right back at the starter switch where we said we would. So, in troubleshooting a light issue, there's a few things that could be the cause. You could have the starter switch. Obviously, it would you'd have a few other issues because when the starter switch turns on, the headlight goes out. That's what this circuit right here is for. And you'll notice that there's a line across these two switches. When this one closes, this one opens up. When this one opens up, this one closes. They're actually tied together. So you could have an issue with your starter switch, believe it or not. You could have an issue with your ignition switch. You could have an issue with the fuse. You could have an issue with your dimmer. You could have an issue with your light bulb. What would I do if it were me? First thing I'd do is see if you got power to your light bulb. We said earlier that this was a ground because it's G. It's a green wire. Most green wires on these motorcycles are going to end up being ground, but you need to confirm that with the wiring diagram. If we trace this back, we will actually find that somewhere along the way these wires are all tying off of the ground, but eventually it will make its way back to ground. So if you had a voltmeter and you wanted to test this, you'd come in here, you'd unplug your connector, which will be right in here. You'll put your black lead of your voltmeter there. You'll find the white wire. You'll put your red lead there, and you should be able to read 12 volts. If you don't have 12 volts, the easiest way to do it is move back to this little 4-pin connector, which is more than likely up in your headlight bucket, and you could find the blue and white wire and go to ground, and you should have 12 volts there. If you do have 12 volts there, in between them is your dimmer switch. You need to pull your dimmer switch apart, follow the blue and white wire, see if you've got 12 volts there, and then a white wire coming out goes to your headlight. If you don't have 12 volts there, obviously your dimmer is shot.